Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome my next guest to the Quantum Leap Business Show, going around the world, giving ideas, inspirations and insights into how various people, thought leaders and business leaders around the world deal with a number of the issues that face us all. And today, it's my great joy to have a friend of mine who I've known for the better part of a couple of decades now, Richard Strongman, Dr. Richard Strongman from Harvest Fine Foods. Richard, welcome to the program.
Good morning, John. Hi, how are you?
It's great to have you. Great to have you on the show.
Great to see you. Thanks for involving me.
So, Richard, as I said, we've known each other for 15 years or so. Other than the blindingly obvious, how's business changed for you over that time in concept? I know you're in the wholesale food industry, but how has business in general changed over that time?
So it's a very different operation now. When we first met, John, I was five years into my journey as an entrepreneur, and then I just branched out from being employed by someone else and had come into the family business, which was a very small concern at that time. And I don't think I really had much of a clue what I was letting myself in for, if I'm honest. I was good at what I did in my previous background as an engineering manager in a water company. But back then, I suppose we had about 8 employees, and we were £500,000 or so turnover as a business, maybe just sub £1 million, and very much scrabbling around for business. And it was really good fun in those days. And where we are today is a very different operation. You know, I'm a 20 million, £25 million operation with 160 staff, and we're a 7-day-a-week business and so on. And it's a very different proposition now. And I think if I really look back, there's no way I could have imagined that in my wildest dreams that this is where I'd be, now. And I think also maybe I would have given myself a note of caution, which is to say, careful what you wish for, Richie, because it's not all a bed of roses running a big business like this, actually.
Yep. And it's amazing. It's been a great success story here in the Dorset-based area of how you've grown it by 20x plus in that time. So,
well,
Richard,
I've learned a lot about myself, John, in that time too, and I've learned a lot about life and about business. And most of the time, I've learned it by making mistakes, actually, and quite often costly mistakes. And that's the hardest form of education that there is, really, isn't it? I've had a very expensive education when you consider all the mistakes I've made.
Yep. Well, as you know, Richard, I speak on business around the world, and one of the things I say is that show me a person that never makes a mistake, and show me a person I never want to work with. Show me a person that makes the same mistake over and over again. Show me a person I don't want to work with.
Yeah, so, hopefully I haven't made the same mistake multiple times. But I have to confess, I probably have. It probably just manifests slightly differently, but the underlying cause is probably the same.
Yeah,
so not perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
So what, just talking about that, what do you think would be, if you care to share it, what do you think was the biggest mistake, and how did you correct it?
Oh, God. Yeah, don't know about that one. Biggest mistake. I've made so many, John. Yeah, I'm really sorry. I can't answer that off the cuff like that. I'd have to think about that one a little bit more. Maybe I'll circle back round to that one later, because I'd have to pick something special out of my anthology of mistakes.
Yeah.
That catalogue.
So we can certainly return to that if you think of someone in the meantime. But Richard, when you started the business, and as I say, you took over a business, what was your why? That you began the whole thing? A lot of people talk about their why rather than what it is that they do. What was your why?
It's interesting. I've reflected on this many times over the years, and obviously I've read the book, Start with Why, and so on and so forth. And I've always sort of felt that I need to come up with some great world-shattering, revelation as to why I do this business. It has to be some great, esoteric purpose of some description. The truth is, it was about testing myself, actually, John. I'd worked in a very heavily regulated and monopolized industry, and was very good at what I did, as I say. But my dad used to chip away at me in the background. So you don't really know business, Richard. You're not really, at the cut and thrust of real commerce. And my dad is a source of great wisdom, and he would say things. One of his favorite sayings was, "Ships are safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are for." And I could see myself cruising to retirement in the previous industry, and having a very comfortable life and a very comfortable job, but was I really, braving the oceans and taking life by the bull by the horns, as it were? And so this was very much a question of proving to myself, can I do it? Can I set up and run a business? Can I make it successful? Can I grow a business? Can I be my own boss? All those sorts of questions. And, over 20 years of business, it's required a lot of tenacity and digging deep into reserves and finding out all sorts of things about myself that maybe I never would have found out had I stayed where I've been before. Yep. So that was really my why. And I guess the other thing is I'm very big about helping other people in life. And my whole mission in life is to really create opportunities for people to be the best versions of themselves. And I felt probably in my previous experience in work that quite often politics came a lot into play rather than the ability for somebody to do a good job. And I really wanted to make a difference in that sense. And however long somebody was with me and whatever they contributed to my business during that time, I wanted to leave everybody that I came into contact with in my business life in a better place than they were before I started, as it were.
Yep. Brilliant, and that's a pretty common thread through a lot of thought leaders that I've interviewed. So it's an interesting recurring theme. Richard, you've got a PhD in biophysics. Has that helped in your business in any way?
Not directly, to be truthful. But it's good to have a good grounding and a good education, isn't it? Generally speaking. I think where a formal education and structured education like that helps is it helps you to think and to analyze, to plan, and maybe to be a bit more structured in the way you approach things.
Yep.
That's probably the biggest lessons. And as I say, certainly a PhD requires a different level of personal tenacity to get through it. It is hard work actually, and it's a lot of late hours on your own and so on and so forth in isolation. So it requires a lot of self-dependence and self-resilience, and that's what that probably taught me.
Yep. And I don't know if you notice it, but I've been quite outspoken on probably in the last decade or two, the type of person that's coming through the graduate process in the UK has very few, if any, soft skills, and they certainly don't have any business acumen, which is a sad indictment. What can we do as business leaders, or do you do anything as a business leader to try and change that in some way for the younger generations?
I suppose the other thing they lack is a work ethic, in my opinion. Most of them don't seem to want to work. We have to adapt, unfortunately, as businesses. Maybe it's a good thing. We'll look back on it and reflect on it in years to come, and we'll be more enlightened businesses and thinking in a different way. They will. This new mindset and approach to that we have to take to recruit the new generation coming through and so on is going to mean we're going to have to adapt. We'll be very different businesses. And we'll probably, as I say, we'll probably look back and reflect on it in a positive light. It's a painful process while we go through it. Do we need to change them, John? I don't know. It's, as I say, maybe it's the businesses that need to change, and time will tell. But I think, gosh, I don't know. I think it's let us adapt to them, because they aren't going to adapt to us. It's a little bit like, how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? Well, it depends whether the light bulb wants to change. I don't think they want to change, and so forcing the issue there isn't going to help us very much.
Okay, interesting thoughts, certainly. Richard, just to give people a broad brush strokes of your business, Harvest Foods, it distributes to restaurants and hotels. Give us just the encapsulation of what that business does.
So, in terms of the business solution that we provide, we're a one-stop shop for professional caterers. And that can be anybody from a Michelin star restaurant to a care home, schools, nursing homes, and so on. And primarily, historically, the business has been set up to provide raw ingredients to professional chefs. The reality is the nature of the industry is changing. People are not going into hospitality and catering anymore. So the skill base in kitchens is dropping. And so increasingly we're providing, you know, finished menu solutions for people, again, regardless of what sort of business category they are. And it's a very diverse range of products. We've expanded the range of products during the lockdown and in the immediate period after lockdown by over 1,000 new products probably that we put through the business to meet the new needs in a post-pandemic world, in fact.
Wow. Wow. And that must have caused some logistical issues as well, perhaps.
Sure. And I mean, the post-Brexit, post-pandemic world is a very different operating environment. And there's a lot of challenges, you know, what you read and what you see on the television and in the newspaper about supply chain difficulties, about employment of delivery drivers and staffing issues and so on, is all completely true. You know, and we are experiencing huge difficulties with that. Minimum order quantities and lead times have now been pushed out. So where before we might have a 5-day lead time on product and a mixed pallet delivery requirement, we're now being told that we have to order whole pallets of every product, and we have a 28-day lead time on it. So the planning and logistics becomes a lot harder, and that's before you start running into issues around ports being sort of blockaded, you know, by excess product being stored there and containers blocking it up because there aren't enough drivers to move them around the country, basically.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a lot of logistic challenges at the moment.
Yep. Richard, we met through networking. I think there's a common theme, and one of the interviews I'm going to be doing for this show is with Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI. Okay. So that should be an interesting interview. But we met through networking. What other, do you still do networking now? Now that you've grown 20 times what you were when we met, and or what other routes to market do you employ for a bit bigger business?
I encourage my field sales staff and the people that are sort of frontline for the business in that sense to get out and find their local networks. I still think it has a place. I'm going to say that I never really picked up a direct customer from doing that, but that was never my intention, John. You and I both know that. You and I both set out in our networking careers to help other people primarily, and if there was some benefit for us, then that's great. And so, you know, it was more about meeting and connecting with people. Nowadays, you know, as the owner of a much bigger business and so on, my networking tends to be a different kind of networking. So it tends to be executive networking on golf courses and places like that and at meals. But one of my favorite things to do at the moment is I'm involved in a peer-to-peer group. And, you know, even though I have a board of directors here, having a peer network, you know, a confidential peer network and so on is a really valuable tool for me. It's a great support network to be with other business owners, because being a leader in business is a lonely place, as you and I both know.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I've been on a couple of those, and they provide extreme value. And another listening post, because quite often we get very close to the action, in fact, too close, and we need to helicopter back and have a look in with a set of eyes that's fresh on the business.
And look, I mean, my business is still growing at a prodigious rate. So we shrunk quite hard during the pandemic, and we lost about 85% of our trade during the first lockdown, and we had to really improvise to get through that. And we just about kind of got through by the seat of our pants, really. Emerging on the other side, the first 5 months of this year, we traded at about 65% of 2019 levels. But since then, we've been trading at 135% plus. And so, you know, the growth, when you're growing at that kind of rate, there's a kind of frenetic energy to try and keep things going. And you don't always get the chance to sort of step away, take that helicopter view that you need as the owner of a business and, you know, plot the future direction, because you're so embroiled in the day to day. And so actually something like peer-to-peer makes me step out once a month at least and really reflect and work and think about what I can do to work on the business still. Yep. So it's some valuable reflection time for me and a sanity check amongst the chaos of everything else that's going on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%. So that's an interesting thing you just raised there, that despite COVID, despite logistics, despite everything else that can hinder our mind as to why we have limiting beliefs in growth, you've still been able to manage a better growth than pre-pandemic. What do you put that down to? Are there a couple of strategies that you've now doing something different that you weren't before?
I'd like to take credit for it, but I don't think that I can entirely. we tried to maintain, our service ethic primarily. The most important thing at the moment, John, is if you've got the product and you can get it to people, that is the single most important thing, because as I say, there are supply chain issues. We diversified our customer base during the pandemic a little bit. So we've expanded a little bit more into the care sector and education sector than we did before. That's indexing a bit higher in terms of its representation as part of our customer base now. And we've expanded our product ranges to incorporate alcohol and fresh meat now, which is something we didn't do before. As I say, in the post-pandemic world, quite a lot of customers of ours have changed their menu because of the shortages of resources and staff in their kitchens. And so, but I mean, one of the biggest factors for us is that we're members of a big buying group. So we're a collective of about 12 businesses nationally with a turnover of about £650 million. And we can deploy that buying leverage to get better pricing and also to ensure supply chain because we've got that kind of weight. And I think the other factor, of course, is when it comes to new product development, we can kind of pool our resources as well to do more new product development and understand what's going on in the marketplace. So that's been one of the key factors for us. But I mean, I can't take too much credit for it. A lot of it is pent-up demand, John. One of the things that people have really missed. Humans are social animals, as you and I both know, and we're both sociable people, and everyone wants to get out and eat with their friends and family again. And so there has been a huge demand on the catering and hospitality sector, and that's what's driven it for us. And it's really been a bit like riding a roller coaster and just holding on for dear life as we go racing down the hill.
Yep.
Maybe hope it will slow a little bit as we come up over the next hill, and then we can go again, as it comes into next year.
Yep. That's an important point because some businesses do grow faster than what they expected, and that in turn causes issues in its own right. But
one of the good things the government did, of course, was provide the CBIL loans during the pandemic period, and that capitalisation has been part of enabling us to expand as rapidly as we have, really.
Yep. Yeah. Well, there's plenty.
Staffing's been a huge issue, John. I can't understate that. We had 35 people on our night staff during the pre-pandemic period, and people reassessed their lives during the pandemic, and they really rethought what they wanted from life and spending time with their families, what they wanted from their jobs. Some of my staff went off and set up their own businesses actually, and have left us and now have successful businesses of their own. And I applaud that, and I'm absolutely delighted for them. But it has caused me a short-term problem in terms of replacing them, and it's been a bit of a merry-go-round in that respect.
Yep. And I think that we need to focus as business owners on developing some academies and developing some courses at higher education. And that's why I asked the question before. I think there's an opportunity there for a bright person with a bit of time and thought to prepare people for business. But you mentioned the government, and there's plenty of people taking pot shots, and it's all very well to sit there and criticise when you don't offer solutions, which is always a bugbear of mine. But compared to other countries, as you know, we operate directly and indirectly in 32 countries. And I've seen some of the places like Thailand that gave no support at all to businesses. So anybody moaning here, I just say, go and operate a business there for a few months and tell me that there's a problem. But, with furlough, with BBL loans, with CBILS, with all the other help that the government has had, you took advantage of that, presumably. And are there any long-term ups and downs with that?
The support that we got was fairly limited, John. I mean, I'm grateful, and I wouldn't want to be in their shoes for 1 minute. There's an old saying: there's a lot of difference between being in the bull ring and talking about being in the bull ring. And other parties and so on can complain about what the government has done, but they weren't in the bull ring. And an extraordinary set of circumstances for any government to deal with. We were unfortunate in the sense that we slipped through, or fell between two stools, slipped through the net, whatever it might be. In terms of being eligible for quite a lot of support. And so the furlough scheme didn't work for us the first time round very well because we actually pivoted our business. I don't know if you were aware, but we pivoted within about 48 hours of the lockdown into a B2C operation, which was hugely challenging for us. And we signed up something like, in the end, about 12,000 new customers to the B2C operation. Only about a third of those, or a quarter of those, actually went on to place an order. but the demand was very high. And what that ended up being was very much a public service that we offered. And so my staff were fully engaged, and actually we employed extra staff during that initial period of the lockdown. And we weren't really eligible to use the furlough then. It also wasn't very flexible. When they introduced the flexible furlough, it was in a deeper lockdown at that point, and then we did take advantage of that to some extent. We weren't really eligible for any grants. And so the CBIL is a self-funded thing for business, isn't it? You know, you have to guarantee it yourself.
Yep.
And you have to basically pay it back yourself, and you have to work your way out of it. So not been huge beneficiaries of that, but certainly my sector has been beneficiaries with the cut in VAT to hospitality and the rates relief and some of the BBL grants that they got and so on and so forth. That's helped to prop it up.
Yeah.
I don't think we're out of the woods with that yet, John. You know, a lot of these businesses still have to get through the quiet Q1 next year before we can really safely say that those businesses are going to survive. So,
yeah,
you know, if the government listens, then don't forget that we're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, 100%. So, and I spoke to Andy Lennox. You must know Andy, and he started up the Wonky Table Group, and the Eat Out to Help Out springs to mind as that it did give a help out. So there's some other bits that we get lost and forget about after a little while. But
yeah, no, that's a good scheme, and you know, it presented its own challenges. You know, the demand for that was so enormous that again, you know, caterers were brought to their knees by that, and sometimes the unintended consequences, and this is one of the great learnings in life and in business, isn't it? The unintended consequences and unanticipated consequences of your actions. You know, road to hell being paved with good intentions.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the good outcome of this is that governments around the world might have a better idea on a playbook that if you had a pandemic, and I'm not playing down the death rate on the pandemic, but if you had something like Ebola that killed so many more people, perhaps what we've learnt during this might be a blessing for the future. Who knows?
Yeah.
Richard, you mentioned staffing as being an issue. Are you using any particular strategies to either attract or retain staff that perhaps you might not have been doing back in 2019?
So I'm kind of almost a little bit embarrassed to admit this, but I'm going to do it because, you know, we're going to be open and honest. And one thing is that business often is portrayed when you have interviews and so on and so forth. We always put the glossy side of business forward and make it look. And quite often it conceals a darker truth, if you like, and about how hard the situation is. So, as I said, pre-pandemic, we had 35 people on my night shift. In the sort of 6 weeks following reopening, about 30 of those decided that they wanted to do different things. In some cases, they were poached away to other jobs because of the shortage of staff within the marketplace. In some cases, they no longer wanted to work nights, and in other cases, they set up their own businesses or went off to pursue a lifetime ambition. One chap went off to become a carer for sick adults with learning difficulties and so on, something he'd always wanted to do. And you go, well, yeah, that's fantastic. That presented me with a really big problem. I'd lost, you know, 80–90% plus of my experienced night staff. And that has knock-on consequences, the effectiveness and of your staff or the efficiency with which your business operates is a fraction of the number of staff multiplied by their experience at the end of the day. So take away the experience, what you've got to do is throw a lot more staff at the problem. And we still didn't get it right in that context. So when you're in that kind of situation, you've kind of got an immediate need to get staff in, and it's very much throwing mud at the wall and seeing what's going to stick. And you don't always have the luxury of having a really nice recruitment strategy at that point, you know, really comfortable and cozy and rose-tinted recruitment strategy. So we kind of, we've managed to get past that now. And in October, actually, for the first time since we reopened on May the 17th, we were operating with what I would call a full complement of permanent staff. We've got still a few drifters in and out, but broadly speaking, so now we can get back onto, you know, the nice, proper recruitment strategy that we've got. But I think, you know, with over, what are they saying, 1 million vacancies now, job vacancies in the UK, I think we've still got a bit of to-ing, fro-ing to go. And, you know, we're still getting, we had, in the last week, we had 3 delivery drivers leave for different reasons. One found the job that we were doing was a little bit too arduous, wanted something a bit easier, more of a taxi driving job really. Another one took a job for more money. And the third one, unfortunately had to leave us because of some mental health issues.
Yep.
And couldn't cope with the demands of what he needed to do, and needed to focus on his personal life, which is okay.
Yep. It's interesting that you say that money on a recent report I read was only number 5 in the motivation of providing people are getting a reasonable salary. Money was the number 5 motivator as why they either went to a job or stayed at one.
I'll give you a little example, John. I think broadly speaking that's true, but I think it changes under certain circumstances. We had a situation where one of our former employees went to work for an unrelated business in the Southampton docks. And one evening at about 10 o'clock, he phoned up one of my chaps. I had 2 fellas working for me. They were my best loaders for my vehicles on the night. Been with me for a couple of years. And he phoned them up and said, if you come and join us, I'd like you to come and join us. If you come and join us, I'll pay you a £500 bounty and £3 an hour more. I said, yep, sounds great. Okay, we'll hand our notice in tonight. No. If you come and join us tonight and don't give notice, I'll give you a £500 bonus and £3 an hour extra, And so they went out for their tea break at midnight and never came back. So the particular circumstances we're in at the moment are such that, yes, people are drawn to that money, and we're getting conversations almost on a daily basis. I can earn £1 more an hour down the road. Amazon are offering, I think, a £3,000 joining bonus for people that will come and join them at the moment in their distribution warehouses. So, inevitably people are going to be attracted by that sort of stuff. Once you get past that and get people in, then the other hygiene factors that you talk about, the 1, 2, 3, and 4 in that hierarchy, come into play. But you've got to have and at the moment, that salary positioning exercise is undergoing a bit of a shake-up. It will level out at some point, and then we'll be able to get back to those other hygiene factors that we talk about. But right now, a bit fraught.
It sounds extraordinary, and I know that if I was employing people and I saw on a CV that they'd left without notice for a £500 bounty, I wouldn't even give them an interview. But so, yeah, anybody out there, I would be careful of wishing what you want. And
of course you do that. You look at it, don't you? When you're looking at someone's job history, you look at it. But again, John, when you're recruiting, I'm not going to say at the unskilled level, but when you're recruiting blue collar workers in warehouses and so on, quite often CVs are not something you look at.
Yep.
It's something that you and I are accustomed to perhaps looking at in our professional capacity. And when we're recruiting professional people, but when you're at that level, quite often people come in, they don't have a CV at all.
Yep.
And the other problem you have is people turn up for an interview, they accept the job, you take them through the induction, you say you start tomorrow at 7 a.m. or whatever it is, and they don't turn up tomorrow at 7 a.m. because they've got another job in the meantime.
Yep.
So yeah, it's as I say, it's a moment in time. It's frustrating when you're there, and in a couple of years' time, you'll look back on it and it'll be a distant memory. But right now, you've got to live forward through that and work forward through it.
And I think the reoccurring theme is that you're still thriving despite some of these issues. So focusing on the issues rather than the outcome might not be a great strategy. Richard,
no, you've got to maintain that focus on that distant vision, haven't you? And these other little things are the waves that come along the way. You've got to keep steering your boat in that direction.
Yep. I see you're up for an industry award or shortlisted for one. Do you have any award strategy, or do they just come at you because you're so great, or what's the story there?
You know me, John. You've known me for 15 years. And my focus is always just on getting my head down and doing a great job. So I've never been someone that looks for accolade or recognition or award particularly. That's a common theme in my life. And in some ways, that's a negative thing because I'm always looking for the next mountain to climb. I get to the top of one mountain and I barely pause for breath before looking for the next mountain to climb. That can be difficult when you're a business leader for your team to deal with. And so fortunately, I've got a few people around me, such as my commerce director and my FD, who are sort of more of the kind of people who will pause to reflect and pat ourselves on the back and remark on where we are. And so actually, truthfully, they put us forward for a couple of awards. We won a couple where we've been, nominated by other people. But yeah, the truth is you have to put yourself forward in order to get an opportunity to be considered. And I see them now as being great for staff morale. As something I wouldn't have chased before, but I've seen the impact. We've won quite a few awards in recent years, actually. And it makes a really big impact on the staff when they feel they're working for a business that are winning awards and are being recognised, by independent bodies, really. So yeah.
Great point. Richard, you're in a fiercely competitive business, and you've got some massive big players, multinationals that you're up against. And I know one thing that's very frustrating for consumers is trying to deal, try and make a phone call to LinkedIn or your energy supplier or any of those big companies, and you can never talk to a human. How do you combat do you have any strategy to combat the big guys?
I don't tend to focus on what other people are doing. I suppose that's the first thing. I never really have. I'm always focused on my journey, because I think if you get distracted by other people's journey and what's going on in their businesses, you lose sight of where you're going. So I suppose that's my first thing. And so I don't set out a particular strategy to deal with competing with them. I set out the strategy that I think is right for my business at a particular moment in time. There's no doubt we've had to adapt our strategies as a result of commercial pressures, as a result of the pandemic, as a result of Brexit, and so our business looks different today in terms of our customer contact strategies to what it did. We still maintain a very high level of personal interaction with our customer base, and so we still have business development managers out in the field meeting with clients on a daily basis. We still have a telesales team here, or a customer service team, where customers can engage with us. But we've obviously opened up and to digitization, and given people the opportunity now to order online if they want to, via multiple different devices and so on and so forth, through an app, online on the website, and so on and so forth. And I think the key is for any business really is being easy to deal with. Make it easy for your customers to engage with you, and that's what we strive to do at the end of the day. The truth of the matter is that perhaps we haven't got the luxury now in the post-pandemic, post-Brexit world to do things in quite the way we would like to do them that would make me happiest. Because when I pick up the phone and I get an automated answer response and it says press 1 for this and 2 for that, and so I disengage. I'm really not interested. I have to engage electronically and book my servicing for my car online. I don't like it. I like to phone up the garage and talk to them.
Yep.
I'm a people person fundamentally, and so it goes against the grain for me to be doing these things. But I recognise that seems to be where the world's going, and so therefore, as a business, we have to respond to that and be flexible and make it easy for customers. That's what I would say our strategy is.
Yep. So sustainability is a big buzzword now. We've got COP26 happening right now as we speak, and plenty of examples around the world where certainly the overwhelming majority of people understand that climate change is here and it's not going away. Do you have any sustainability strategies, Richard, that you could share with the audience?
It's very key in our whole business strategy, the corporate social responsibility thing and the environmental sustainability angle. And we do as much as we can. There are limits. So every time we renew a vehicle, John, we look at to see whether or not the technology has moved on sufficiently for us to move into electric vehicles. We're moving our business development managers over into electric or hybrid vehicles and moving away. We do all our waste segregation. We're zero to landfill now in our business. We chosen an electricity provider which has a higher percentage of renewables. We couldn't get 100% renewables at the time, but we've chosen the highest we could, pay a slight premium for that. So we're looking at every angle and constantly reevaluating it, to be honest with you. I suppose if I had one wish and I could wave a magic wand, I'd really like to be able to engage with my customers more, because I think there's more we could do working in partnership to progress this agenda. But because of the competitive nature of the business and the fact that my competitors will offer 7-day-a-week delivery and no minimum order, and we'll run around to the same customer twice a day or 12 times a week or something for a 50 quid order, means unfortunately there's no imperative for them to do anything different. But we could cut down on the number of miles that we do. I mean, as a business, we work with our supply chain locally. We try to support as many local businesses as possible. That's always been my strategy. If we can buy local, a service or a product, professional service or whatever, we do so and build relationships over long periods of time. And we backhaul daily on our vehicles. So they're not moving around empty. As they come back from their delivery runs, we call into local farms and producers, and we bring the stuff back into the depot ourselves. So we're striving to do everything we can. Can we do more? Of course we can. And we're actively looking at what we can do to move to the next step. Yep. We've kind of taken some of the low-hanging fruit. Where we start getting now is the more challenging stuff. There isn't really a viable commercial vehicle out there at the moment that can run multi-tent, chilled and frozen and ambient, and do a 200-mile round delivery trip. So we've got to think about those last mile solutions and how we can adapt to that. I think that's going to be more of an industry-wide strategy, really, John.
Yep. And the rate technology moves when it has to is astounding. So
yeah, it did during the pandemic, didn't it? They reckon that it's moved things forward in terms of the online and digitization for businesses by about 10 years.
Yep. Richard, we touched on it before, but with staff, but burnout and mental health issues for the business owner is a common theme that I hear from a lot of business owners. Do you have any thoughts on that, or any things that you do to relax the brain, or do something that puts you in a positive mental state if you get down?
It's again, being an owner of a business is a lonely place, and no one pats you on the back and no one gives you a cuddle when you need one, do they? And people are looking to you to be the one that picks them up when they're down. And so actually, I think it's a really big issue for business leaders, and that's again why things like peer-to-peer is great, because you can have open discussions that go no further with people. I think it's important that all of us should recognize our own energy levels. We all have a different energy profile. Me personally, I tend to work very intensely in short bursts, and that can be during a working day, and that can also be within a month or a quarter. The important thing for me is I need to take breaks and I need to rest. Over the last 24 months or so during the pandemic, I didn't take any breaks. I worked all the way through. I took a break finally in August, and my body has just gone and collapsed after that. And I've had a series of ailments and illnesses, and I'm just sort of working my way through those as my body kind of comes back to equilibrium, really. So recognize your energy levels and look after yourself, I think, and put yourself first. And I think it's easy sometimes to think that what you're doing in business is the most important thing right now, and to set aside your own welfare. And in actual fact, over 20 years, what I realized is on the occasions I've done that, it was never really that important, John.
Yep.
One of the biggest regrets I ever had is that I think the first summer that we moved into chilled foods, which was probably around about 15 years ago when I first met you, I remember my family going on holiday to visit relatives in Finland for the summer, and they had 3 beautiful, glorious weeks in Finland. And I didn't go because I thought I needed to stay in the business. And now I look back, and every time I see one of those photos, the only thing I can feel is regret, because I really didn't need to be there. The business would have survived and would have carried on just as well. And I think it's really important to keep those things into perspective. So yeah, I think that's probably number one. Always put your family first. Remember why you're doing these things. Give yourself time. Be kind to yourself. Often we're quite punishing on ourselves as owners of businesses. We're driven, aren't we?
Yeah.
And we're probably our biggest critics, and we drive ourselves forward all the time. So perhaps be a bit kinder to yourself. Give yourself that time and space, and plan it into your agenda and your work and your life schedule.
Yep.
The most successful business people and the ones that I admire the most are the ones that do that, in fact.
Yep.
And I don't emulate it very well. I wish I did. Wish I was better at it, truthfully.
Yep. Richard, a lot of things I read these days and have done for a while talk around things like starting with the end in mind. Did you have any idea around starting the end in mind, or where are you now? Is there an end to your journey somewhere that you've got envisagement?
So when I think I had this idea when I started the business off that I mean I wanted to create this business. I hesitate to use the word meritocracy because there's a much broader meaning to that, but I did want to create an environment, a business where we impacted the world in a positive way. I also had a fanciful notion, John, that I would create a business that would run itself and generate a passive income for me. I've got to be honest, I probably didn't know how to do that, and it's. The perverse thing about this is I found myself thinking that it's over the next hill all the time. If I can just put that in place, then. And of course, what you do is you put that in place and the business grows, and then you need to put something else in place and the business grows. So I'd always had this idea that I wanted that passive income, and I don't know what I would have done with my time had I achieved that. I mean, I set out with the idea of making a £5 million a year business. And I far and away exceeded that. I thought when I got to £5 million, I'd have this self-perpetuating thing that would give me the passive income that I desired to go off and explore other interests in my life. That hasn't really happened. I keep finding another challenge to chase, and so I think it's something that I can't really set myself up as some great paragon of virtue here and say to people, follow my example, because I don't think I really delivered on that, if I'm honest.
I think that I'd beg to differ, Richard, and as there's 97% of the people on the call would swap your success for where they are sitting, certainly at this point in time. But
I'll refer you back to my Chinese proverb, care for what you wish for, you might just get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Richard, what one piece of advice would Richard Strongman, hovering back in time to your 21-year-old self, what piece of advice would you give to yourself for knowing what you know now?
One piece, probably, actually, I got lots of pieces of advice for myself, John. I think learn to listen to my own intuition. So many times I've second guessed myself over the years. So many times I didn't follow my gut and my intuition on the business, and was maybe allowed myself to be diverted from my track, and 9 times out of 10 it didn't work out. I should have followed my own intuition and had more confidence and more self-belief. But I think in terms of personal advice, my thing would be remember who you're working for and remember what's important in life, and work. You work for you. I do it for my family at the end of the day. Why did I do all of this? To provide them financial security, to provide them with a good life, to provide them with great opportunities. But grab every moment with your children, because if you have children and you're lucky enough to embark on that journey in your life, every parent will tell you that time goes too fast. And when I look back on the 20 years, really the only thing, I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of cock-ups, bad decisions, and so on and so forth. The only things I really regret in life are the times when I didn't take the opportunity to spend time with my children and my family and my loved ones. So it would be, keep that at the forefront of your mind, Richie. Don't forget that's why you're here.
Wow, what a wonderful piece of advice to round off our interview, which has been entertaining and far too short, but time gets away. Richard Strongman, what a wonderful insights and session, and I wish you well, and thank you very much for giving up your time. And I know you're a busy guy, to share some of the experiences that you've had with our audience. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, John, and it's lovely to see you as always.